I didn't realize it was something that I was missing until I did it, and then I was like, "Oh my gosh,
It's
this was
the
such a big moment for me."
circle of life.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is a video where I like to highlight voiceover actors that I respect, admire, I've worked with, who are amazing, and I couldn't think of anyone better than to start this series off with than Amanda Troop. Amanda has done it all. She is a voiceover, what would be the word? Voiceover prodigy? No, I don't know.
Nope, no, no.
You do everything.
You're
She
gonna
does
you're gonna edit that clip.
she does audiobooks, video games, theme parks, cartoons, commercials. She's done it all.
A
Amanda
a
Troop.
a voiceover Renaissance
Yes,
person?
there you go. A voiceover Renaissance woman. Amanda Troop, thank you so much for being here. Please, so tell us a little bit specifically, first of all, like what you're working on at the moment. What do you do in a day in the life, a day in your
Oh,
life as a
oh
voiceover actor?
golly. Hi. First of all, hi.
Hello.
I've known AJ for quite a long time since we did a great little web series called Banff Girls together, and he called me very rightly so on my not quite authentic British accent, and it was hilarious. So it's really fun to be here. Day in the life of my voice acting right now involves a lot of audiobooks.
Mhm.
So let's say it's a day where I'm starting a new audiobook project. So I have read the book. I have created my list of characters, kind of roughly figured out what they sound like, made notes of major plot points that are happening, and then I'll go in the booth
Mhm.
and I'll make my folders and I'll set up my FTP software and then I'll start recording. And it's a little bit lonely. It can be very entertaining because I'm reading a book, but I'm just in here by myself. But there's a big push of people wanting to get into audiobooks. And, I'll say what I say about every aspect of voiceover, which is you have to work on your acting first. And yes, you can go on ACX and you can start auditioning today and try to book things today. That's ACX is Amazon's voiceover audiobook portal, and they have auditions there. And and you may book some things, but until you get your acting skills polished and work ready, you're going to struggle getting footing in any part of voiceover, and that includes audiobooks.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. And that kind of ties in what you're saying, like, it's acting first. You'll hear voiceover actors say that all the time because you can get started right now, right away, but it's always acting first. So, but just why don't you share a little bit about your personal story of how you got into voiceover? What did you start doing? And then how
Sure.
did that morph into voice acting?
Yeah, so I started acting when I was 11. We were my parents were both in the army, and then when my dad retired, we ended up moving to Florida where my grandpa lived, and my mom got us involved in this community theater, and I really hadn't at that point thought about becoming an actor at all. I had seen Into the Woods, the Broadway recording with Bernadette Peters, and I thought I'd like to be the witch in Into the Woods.
Who
But
wouldn't?
I didn't think I want to be an actor. I thought I'd like to be a witch as my job, right? And so like the penny hadn't dropped. Those two things hadn't connected for me yet. And one of the places in Naples, Florida, that was fun and had volunteer opportunities was the local community theater. So my mom ended up signing us up. And then I remember the moment when we were doing This is the Dawning of the Age of Aquarius, and we
Yeah.
were in the audience, and a couple actors were on stage, but the other actors were all in the audience. We were like, wow, they're not going to know we're in the audience. And then on that moment, we all stood up and walked onto the stage singing. I turned around and I literally felt something snap inside me. I was afraid and shaking and nervous. And I turned around, I faced the audience, and I was singing, and I was like, this is it. I love this. This is it. This is what I want to do. Did my own self-study. I read a lot of books. I read Stanislavski and things like that. I took acting classes at school. I did all the school plays, and then I did community theater. Went to school at a liberal arts program. Quickly, after about a year and a half, realized that the liberal arts path wasn't the path I wanted. And that was partially because I thought, okay, you go to school, you get an acting degree, then you graduate with your acting degree and you get the acting job. And then I talked
That's
to this
exactly how it works.
agent.
Yes.
That's not how it works. And I talked to this agent, former agent, and she goes, "Yeah, no, that's not how it works." And so I called my mom and I said, "Hey, at the end of my year of college here, I was a sophomore. I said I'm gonna move to Los Angeles." And there was this long pause, and then my mom said, "Okay, well, we'll help you however we can."
Oh,
And
what
like
a great supportive mother. That's awesome.
that right there is the foundation for any and all of my successes moving
Mhm.
forward, because whether you get that from your parents or whether you get that from your friends or from your acting class or whatever, you need some people who will say, I got your back as you go into this.
Mhm.
I believe in you. It is extremely difficult to go into an acting career when no one thinks you can do it. We drove across country. I moved into a 3-bedroom house. I lived in a very small room off a kitchen. My rent was $400 a month for a room in Burbank
Hell
with a
yeah. Oh
garage.
man.
I know.
The times have
This was
changed.
99 and I moved out when I
Oh.
was 19.
Oh wow.
And I just, I had my parents' faith in me, and so I hit the ground running, and I just knew like I have to make this count. Met casting directors and I got agents, and I just
Mhm.
pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. Took a commercial voiceover class at Calmanson and Calmanson.
Mm.
And the teacher there, was a good teacher. But as I was doing the commercials, I just wasn't feeling that click. And I said to him, I think I'd be better at animation. And he said, well, animation's really hard to get into. You probably want to do commercials first. And I was like, oh, bummer. I think I'd be better off in animation. And so I gave up at that point. I was like,
Oh.
well, I guess I'm not going to do this because demos are expensive and I don't really want to do commercials voiceover wise. And I don't think I'm that good at them.
Hmm.
And I had a film lined up for that summer. And so I was like, I'm good. So then I went to do this film out in Illinois. I was talking to the production manager on the film, and I didn't know this, but she's also like a life coach. In the way that I do, I made some silly voice, and she goes, "Do you do voiceover?" And I said, "No, I heard it's really hard to get into, and it's really expensive to make a demo." And, I gave her all the excuses.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Okay, well, we can basically," she was like, "we can get around some of that. If you fly yourself to Buffalo, you can stay at my place. I have friends in the recording industry. You can record your demo with me out there and we can, bypass those costs." And so it was $200 to fly round trip to Buffalo, New York at that
Wow.
time.
Wow.
So I flew to Buffalo and I stayed with her for like a week and I recorded my animation demo. I came away with a whole bunch of characters recorded. And then I came back and talked to my friend America Young, who was already doing voiceover and animation.
Yeah.
And I was like,
America Young of Barbie movie fame.
yes, and also was on Banff Girls Club with us.
And was also on Bav Girls Club.
Yeah.
Yes, as Katniss Everdeen. My daughter now watches all her movies, loves her thoroughly, and every time I see her name, I'm like, it's America Young.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, she's a TV and film director, and yeah, no, and just a all around badass person.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite humans. So anyway, I contacted her and I was like, "Hey, I've got this like rough demo. What do I do?" And she goes, "Okay, I've got this editor who will do it for you for like, I don't know, I think it was $25 an hour just to edit it."
I love how we keep throwing in the
But
how,
I'm just
like
because I'm
inflation
pointing this
hour.
out. But like, okay, so for $200 plane ticket plus I think we spent maybe 4 to 6 hours editing. $400 total, let's say. I got my animation demo.
The underlying point, though, that I think is worth pointing out is that someone reached out a hand.
Yeah.
Someone helped you. It's always like a thing where. So that's why, again, that's why I want to start with you, because you were the one that reached out a hand to me, and you're the one that like gave me my first steps, my leg up, whatever you want to call it. It's someone always like just extending a hand or opening a door, however, whatever metaphor you want to use.
I will say that the reason I helped you is because you asked. And you didn't
Mm.
ask before you were ready. You asked
Ah.
when you were ready.
Ah.
And that's a very difficult thing to figure out, is when you're ready to do that next step. Nobody's going to reach out a hand to you if they don't know what you're doing,
Mhm.
and they don't know that you want to do it. So you have to let people know that you want to do something. And then you also have to have been preparing on your own. So
Mhm.
if you come to somebody saying, "Hey, I've been told I have a great voice. How do I get into this thing?" That's kind of like, ooh, that's a big ask.
Hmm.
Whereas if you say, hey, I've been taking a lot of acting classes, I have a rough demo put together. I think it might be time for me to get this produced and meet with an agent. Could I get some feedback on this one thing? Okay, now you've opened a really nice door. You have a specific ask. It's something somebody can do for you. Nothing happens in a vacuum. You have to be making the art for that art to go somewhere. You can't go from nothing to making
Yes.
art. So
There you
what I
go.
ended up
Yeah.
doing was I was made a very selective list. I made a list of 10 agents. Reaches, like dream agents, mid-level agents.
Yeah.
And of those 10, Kathy Lizio at CESD emailed me through my website, are you AFTRA? Because this is before the SAG-AFTRA
That
merger.
was before the merger, yeah.
Are you AFTRA and can you come in on Tuesday to audition? And I wrote back, yes and yes. And I jumped in my car immediately and I
Yes.
drove to AFTRA and I gave them my credit card and I joined AFTRA because you could do that as a sister union at that time with
Ah.
SAG. So I joined AFTRA. Then I spent the whole weekend. I did as many characters as I could perform in 1 minute. And I prepped this 1 minute thing of going to a magic zoo. And I prepped that so hard. And I went in on Tuesday and I nailed it. And they said, okay, let's give it a try. And I've been with them since 2006. So I am nearing
Whoa.
10 year or 20
20.
years
Yeah, yeah, I was going to
of
say
being with
that's
CEST.
you're
And
going
they were
on
one of my
19.
dream agents on that list. And I was like, I
That's
did it.
amazing.
I
That's
did it.
amazing. We haven't just done Banff Girls Club
No,
together.
we
As,
have
as
not.
awesome as that is, we have also I use heavy air quotes to say together because we're always like in the booth at separate times. We're never like
Yeah.
there at the same time. But as my horns back there have denoted, and as I've mentioned before, I'm the voice of Loki in the parks and on the Disney Cruise Line. You are the voice of.
Black Widow.
That's right.
Yeah.
ScarJo herself.
Yeah.
You are the voice of Black Widow. So can you tell us a little bit about that? How did you come upon the role of Black Widow?
It was an audition. And, I at that point, I think that was after I did Galaxy's Edge. And
Whoa, hold the phone. Who are you in Galaxy's Edge?
I'm three people in Galaxy's Edge and I've never heard any of them. But I'm two characters in the marketplace area of Galaxy's Edge. One's like a little
Oh,
girl with a doll, and another one is like yelling at her brother about pod racing. And then also in the mechanics bay, I'm
uh-huh.
a named character. And I have a whole script in there, but I've never heard it. So, and then
Yeah,
there's someone that sounds like me on the Smuggler's Run ride line. That is not me. I don't know who that is.
that's Jim Cummings. No. He's doing
Of course
Hondo.
it is.
Wait,
Yeah.
that
It's
kind
like,
of sounded like Amanda.
yeah.
Not quite.
But so at that point, I had worked for the Disney parks, but that was like a big dream of mine. I was like, I want to do a Disney parks voice.
Same.
And
Yeah.
our lovely agent, Pat Brady, had this amazing in with Disney parks. And so, we collectively know a number of people that work in Disney parks. And I was,
Yeah.
like, we know the guy who does the voice of the train. That's her husband, Bob Joles. This kind of stuff is really cool. And as a Disney person, I wanted obviously to go to the park and be like, I'm in this park. I worked for this park. This is so cool. So I got the audition to be ScarJo's voice match for Black Widow. I just really worked on this one. I don't always work this way, but with this one, I really wanted to nail it. And I sat with it. I listened and I recorded and I took a break and I went back and forth and I did it again and I just got closer and closer and closer and closer. And I sent it. I felt really good about what I sent. And so when I booked it, I was like, huh, that worked. It doesn't work for every job. It
Yeah.
really doesn't. I've actually booked more jobs, like you said, when it's like, okay, I got 5 minutes. I'm going to get this off the cuff and send it out. That's for whatever reason, that tends to be a bookier place for me. But this was one of the ones where I just like really dug in. And that's been really cool. So I'm her voice in the theme parks for the stunt show. And I'm her
Wow.
voice on the cruise ships.
Someone was like going to sit down and they were going to attempt to do Scarlett Johansson's voice because it's basically just Scarlett Johansson. She's not doing a voice for Black Widow. But if someone to sit down and do Scarlett Johansson, give me like a few like ingredients that would go into that recipe.
So like what I usually do is I get my voice match file up, and she's got a low voice. She's got very full lips. I usually start with, just like Budapest all over again. I start there, just like Budapest all over again. I say that a bunch. That's my key into her voice. And she's just got this kind of, she is doing a thing though, because she's different sounding than she is in her. Like in her,
Mm,
she's like, hi, I'm just in your ear. And she's got this kind of sexy, quiet thing going on.
that's
Whereas
interesting.
with Black
Yeah.
Widow, she's tougher. She's got a lot of red in her ledger, you know. So
Hmm.
so there's that. So yeah, so I but I always do it by feel. I think people that do impressions, which I don't
Hmm.
do layers. Like my friend Rama Valuri, he does layers and he'll talk about how he builds his impressions. And I think that's really fascinating. For my voice matches, I kind of treat it like music. So I listen
Yeah.
to the
No, I talked about that
notes.
as well. Yeah, it's like
I
music.
listen to the notes and then I
Hmm.
try to sing their voice.
Yes.
And
Yes. I
so
love
I'm
that
just
analogy.
listening. And a lot of times I'll pull up videos of them and I'll see how they're holding their mouth.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
some people have very tight jaws and that
Hmm.
changes how they talk. And some people have very loose jaws and that changes how they talk. And she's pretty relaxed. She's got those bigger lips. And so I put all that in there
Mm.
and then I get to that raspy point. And then I'm like, hey, you know, now I'm Scarlett Johansson and like, can I make you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Okay. You know, she just gets
That's
just
awesome.
something that comes over me and I'm
Yeah.
in the character.
I think it was I was talking to AJ Locascio about this because he does Harrison Ford.
Yes, he
He does
does.
Han Solo. He does Indiana Jones. Blah, blah, blah. He was like, "Oh, Harrison Ford. He almost like was it a slur or a lisp? He was
Yeah,
saying
it's
like
almost like he sounds a little drunk all
yeah,
the
he
time.
sounds a little drunk. And he's talking about this side of
Yeah.
that. He's like, very slightly. He's like, no, it's
Yeah.
not like Sylvester Stallone or anything like
Yeah.
that, but any like that subtle nuance is all it takes. So you saying about ScarJo's lips and like, so how she's holding her leg right here. But so you can use that, talk to it, and you may not necessarily
Yeah.
hear it, but you
Yeah.
feel it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like that Pixar thing where they animate little tiny details like dust or whatever. It's like you don't
Yeah.
necessarily see it, but you feel it.
You feel it. Yeah.
What are some of your favorite roles?
I like to say like my favorite role is the next one.
Oh, the actor response. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But like, what's something that you like look back on fondly, or when someone says like, "Oh, you do voiceover," and you go like, "Yeah, if you listen to such and such, you would hear my voice," or like, "Ah, this voice, I love doing this voice," or anything like that.
Like I love being Black Widow. I got to be Eunice on Firebuds. She was a cute little unicycle, but it was a small part. And so I didn't have the time with her to be deeply invested. I'm working on something right now that I quite like, but I can't talk about it.
Oh, yes. Same,
Um,
same. Yeah.
uh,
All those
and
cursed NDAs.
I really liked playing Gulo in Rage 2. She was like, really, she was an addict and she needed the stuff. Just get me the stuff. She's crazy. And I really liked playing her. She was a lot of fun. With theater, I mean, that's where I really love to dive in and get connected with my characters. Like I was in the Passion play by Sarah Rule, and I
Hmm.
played Mary too, who's Mary Magdalene, in three time periods. And so I really like dove into that character and I got invested. When I was much younger, I did Agnes and Agnes of God. That was a really cool character to sink into. And I did a serialized Star Trek for, I think we did 4 or 5 seasons of Star Trek.
Hmm.
And our ship is actually canonized in the Star Trek universe, our
Really?
SS McGinley, yeah. Um,
That's
and I
cool.
and I played a character named Ilaria Vina in that universe, and like she's a part of me. This she's
Yeah.
a Betazoid, and yeah, she'd been captured by the Borg. This is a storyline I made up myself, but she was captured by the Borg. She got an implant in her head that if she uses her telepathic abilities, it hurts people, and so she has to
Mm.
close off that part of her. And so she's this Betazoid that's like needs connection but can't get connected to anyone. And she had the deepest connection when she was part of the Borg. And, you know, it's great pathos, you know. But that was a character I made for myself. It kind of shows me that, like, as I progress deeper and deeper into this career, the more I want to make my own characters and then sink into those worlds and sort of take those reins of writing my own stories, directing my own stories, creating my own worlds, you know, all of that's becoming more and more and more appealing to me.
You mentioned Star Trek, and that in my mind that took me because I did looping for Star Trek, and you have also done a fair bit of looping, have you
Yeah,
not?
I've also done looping for Star Trek. I did looping for Star Trek Beyond. That
Ah,
film? Yeah.
nice. Now,
Yeah, yeah.
for those watching or listening or whatever that don't know, what can you explain what looping is?
Yeah, looping, also known as Walla Walla, also known as
Walla walla.
ADR, which stands for,
Oh.
I'm not sure. I think it's automated digital recording, or sometimes they say it's additional dialogue recording. It's
See, the same.
it
There's a
there's some
crossover
rumors.
in acting and like the industry and working at Disney, where they constantly use acronyms for things. They're like, oh, just go to TDA, go to LER, go to da, da, da,
Uh-huh.
and they just expect you to know this. And I'm like, listen. And after a while, I just know the letters, and I have
Yeah.
no idea what they mean.
So basically what it is when you're watching a film and you see like a bunch of extras in the room with the main characters. So you're hearing the main characters talk. All the other people in the room are miming what they're saying, and they're miming everything, because
Yep.
if they were talking, it would be incredibly noisy and hard to mic the main characters. And this is sort of in general what this is, but it's not always what this is. And so in that regard, they have a group of actors come in, usually anywhere from like 4 to 16 actors in a
Yeah.
group, depending on how many characters they need. And they'll get a variety of kinds of people to do a variety of kinds of voices based on the project.
Hmm.
I got to loop on Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
That's so cool.
And for that one, they needed a lot of New York and Puerto Rican,
Mm-hmm.
they and authentic voices from those neighborhoods. And so, that was a very different sound than when I did Rebel Moon, and they wanted us all to sound like we were sort of from Norway.
Well, there you go.
Vaguely Norse.
Yeah,
And then
see, every
and
time I
then
go in, they just
yeah,
like, we need Brits, you know.
we
So it
need
was
Brits.
like
Yeah,
it
exactly.
was like a pirate thing I did, and a
Yeah.
couple of looping sessions, Star Trek. So obviously
Yeah.
there's all kinds of myriad of people. And then the biggest thing I did was I went in for Ms. Marvel because they needed Brits to be these like British soldiers in a flashback
Hmm.
scene. But then they were also like, oh, but also, there's this newsreel that we need at the beginning. Can you do a
Yes.
circa 1930s newsreel?
That was so
But that's
fabulous.
how I got that. It was through looping, which was
Yeah.
crazy because
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily audition in the typical sense for that. But I was
Yeah.
just like right place, right time, I guess,
Yeah,
like
and
I
you
was
never know
just
what kind of things they're gonna ask of you. So, like, when I did Hotel Transylvania 3 and 4,
for
and
looping.
for looping, but
Yeah.
for that, they bring in animation, like, people that do a lot of animation. So I'm working with Fred
Mm.
Tatasciore and Kari Wahlgren and, Deborah Wilson and stuff like that, and,
Mm.
like, so for those groups, they want people that can do a lot of broad, cartoony sounds and can do a lot of different, creature sounds and things like that.
Yeah.
But you
Hmm.
kind of never know, like, is my voice gonna pop right here? Is this
Hmm.
line gonna be a line that's in the movie? And then I worked on something that's coming out in the summer that had been shelved and now is coming out, and I'm so excited because for that, I thought we were just doing looping. No, we had lines. I'm
Ah,
so
no way.
stoked. I'm so stoked.
Your bread and butter, as we mentioned before, is audiobooks. And you mentioned ACX. So anyone is anyone basically can you can go to ACX and you can start auditioning today, more or
Yeah.
less, right?
Yeah. Previous bread and butter for many years was on camera commercials. And
Yes,
that
and
that
we would
was
see you. We would be at
that
an
was
airport, and we'd be like,
yeah.
"There's Amanda Troop,
That was like my main thing.
Capital One or something, wasn't it? Or what was it? No,
Allstate
that's it. It was
was the
Allstate.
one
Yeah, yeah.
that was most seen, but I did, 2 years for Chevrolet. I did a Vonage campaign. I did Walmart campaign that never aired. I mean, I've done a Longhorn Steakhouse, Apple,
Wow.
I can't even FedEx. I can't remember. Like, I've worked on a ton of them.
Hey,
But
America
that
runs on
industry
Duncan. You
is
gotta get that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that industry has changed so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially for me with, having a kid and the pandemic, like
Mm,
my time has changed as well. Looping is bread and butter, and now my
Yeah.
new bread and butter, because I'm just saying this because as an actor, you do have to kind of evolve, or as an artist, you have to go, okay,
Yeah.
what else am I gonna
Yeah.
work on here?
Now,
Where else is this gonna come from? So now I've really moved into audiobooks. Yeah.
so your most recent audiobook that came out, or that came out recently, that my wife just listened to, is The French Honeymoon by Anne-Sophie Journoux. I really hope I'm saying that correctly. Apologies if I'm not. You did a phenomenal job audio narrating that, but something my wife would really like to know,
Uh-huh.
that particular audiobook is a dual narration.
Yeah.
You read the one perspective, and a male narrator reads another perspective. Now, when it comes to that, do you coordinate ahead of time the voices of the characters, the
Yes.
feel, the vibe, everything like that? Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah. So the producers connect us and they say, hey, congratulations, you've both booked this title. Coordinate your characters.
Mm.
And so then we send each other samples. This is how I'm going to do. So I actually did two different female. The book is told in three perspectives. There are two women and it's all first person. So there are two women and there's one man. And so I do both of the female perspectives. So I got to do narration. This was really, really fun with these two different characters telling the whole story. So I sent all of my major characters and he sent all of his major characters wherever there was crossover. And this is one area where he did this with AI, the other narrator.
Did what with AI?
He said he brought it into Adobe, had the Adobe AI go through and say, here are the characters that cross over in the chapters. And I was like, oh my God, what a time saver.
That's
So I was like,
really clever. Okay, for a minute I was like, wait, what did he do with it? No, that's a
voiceover.
really good, that's a moral use of AI right there.
Right. I'm really hesitant to use AI, but I was like, that's a time saver.
No, if it saves you time on anything, that's exactly what it should be used for. Yeah. Not replacing imagination, but saving you time. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just the busy work of like, okay, which characters are we both doing? Okay, great.
Yeah, exactly.
Where do those characters appear? How big are those parts?
That's a smart move on his part. Well done.
And I also have used it myself just to be like, hey, what do these characters sound like? Give me some ideas as I'm reading through this, because you're speed reading, and so there's certainly things that you might miss, and it's nice to have that assistant never doing your job for you,
correct,
but helping you do your job a little bit faster. So it was nice. But yeah, we coordinated it, and I also did a book called The Prince of Then. With another narrator, and so we did the same thing on that, where we shared how we were reading different characters, and then you kind of do your version of how they do it. And especially when it's a female voice and a male voice, it's gonna sound different.
Yeah, you can't voice match if he's like, he's
if he's way down
this,
there. So then my version of that is gonna be like this,
right?
So like,
okay,
and you kind of understand, like, like if I'm doing my character like this, then how would you do this character?
Then he would have to be up here sounding
That's
like
right.
this.
I'm just using a higher part of my voice to talk, and I'm talking quietly.
Exactly.
So you don't want to then be like, oh, it's this pitchy thing. It's not. It's not a voice match. It's a tonal match. And
it's an essence.
It's an essence. Yeah.
Yes. You're matching again. You're matching the energy, the essence of the character. You're not voice matching them. Not in an audiobook, anyway.
And then because he was doing a French accent, I matched for that character that accent.
Have you ever worked with another narrator who's come up and said, like, this is the character, and you're just like had really struggled to like?
Not yet.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
is there an accent? I guess it would be interesting, wouldn't it, if like there'd be a conundrum if, for example, there was a dual narration and your other narrator was of Indian descent, for example, and they had to do a character with a strong, let's say, Indian accent.
Yeah.
And then they were like, all right, now we need your take on that.
No, I think it's different, because you're telling like the author isn't going to have every background. So you have this author who's written a story that includes people of different backgrounds and different ethnicities.
Right.
That's a good thing, to have an inclusive narrative, right? Whatever that person's background is, to have other people of other backgrounds. That's good. That's inclusive writing. So as the narrator, you're sort of an extension of the storytelling of the author.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it is different from like if there was a cartoon show or a video
Yeah.
game and they're like, "Can you do this?" And you're like, that's not authentic to me. That would be an impression. I'm not comfortable with that."
Yeah.
Whereas I would do a very respectful tonal version of that character. And so I
Yes.
have played people of Indian descent in books I've narrated.
Oh, great.
You know, I've unfortunately I did a really bad Scottish accent recently. Um
That's the only way you can do a Scottish accent.
and no, I
Badly.
think I think that there's better ways. I was like, oh, at least this character's a gnome.
They always are. It's so funny. I don't know why the law is the way it is, but the voiceover law, I guess,
Yeah.
is that if
Dwarves are and
dwarves
yeah,
are
are Scottish.
Scottish. Isn't that so funny? Like it's so
It's
every
strange.
time I audition for a dwarf, they're always they say like general
Yeah.
British preferred Scottish or
Yeah.
later, or even if it's just like the
Well,
characters like is
and
this I'm like
elves
he's always got to sound Scottish, he's just goes
and
in there and he's like hey just sound like that, you know.
yeah. And elves are RP,
Elves
right?
are RP, yes. Hobbits can sometimes, or like are like
They're humble or
West
they
Country.
yeah,
You want
yep,
to sound a little bit more bumpkiny, you got to sound
yep,
like that. That's right.
yeah.
But isn't that like just the unwritten law of the land that it says dwarf, you just go Scottish.
Well, I think, I mean, let's take it a step further. I do think it is like a classist thing.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And so, you're looking at these biases and like, so you're sort of saying like, okay, the prettiest sound is RP. So the prettiest characters like should sound like this. And then this is
Mm-hmm.
not as pretty of a character. So we're going to put with this less pretty looking character. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of,
It's very
that's what it is.
classist because
It's very tightly interwoven to the
yep.
point where we don't think about it most of the
No,
time.
I literally recorded for a video game called Orcs Must Die, and they and you don't think about it at the time, but as you bring up, it is very classist. But like the orcs and the ogres we're all Cockney and they all sounded like that,
Yeah.
like they're very Londoner, like, oh, are you all right, mate? Oh, here we go, all that kind of thing. And then, like, but the main characters or the mages, the magicians sound very educated and they're very highfalutin and all that kind of thing. So it's like, it's kind of ingrained, it's inbuilt in the system,
Yeah.
but
I
none of
mean,
them are
it
American.
is.
I don't
It is.
know.
It is. I mean, yeah. I mean, we have our own thing. Like in America, it's like, oh, well, this is a person that's not well educated, and you bring out your Southern
Southern
accents.
accent.
So
That's so interesting. Yeah.
it's still right there. It's a classist.
Ingrained in everything. And if you're thinking like, I trying to think of something, you don't have to go far. Pixar. Mater is, the
Yeah.
Larry the Cable Guy, and he puts on that gear done, does that. There you go,
Yeah.
like that, and it's
Yeah.
a comic relief. But audiobooks is less character voices and more just
Yeah.
yes. Like you say,
It's
you're an
yeah.
extension of the author, as it were.
Yeah.
I remember I booked Starfield, the video game, right? When I was auditioning for it, they were like, this guy he's prisoner, he's rough, he's this, that, and the other. And I was getting like down in the dumps at this point. I hadn't booked anything in ages. So I literally just went balls to the walls with it. And I was like, I'm going to break out this Jason Statham impersonation. And I just started talking like this. I was like, listen, mate, you're going to be talking like blah, 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 blah. And I was like, whatever, send it off. And of course, that's the thing I book. So
Yeah.
then I'm
Yeah.
like, hooray! Now I've got this voice that I have to recreate. And they get in the booth and they're like, here's the voice you did. All right, man. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, fuck. Because I was like, that was fine for a 15-second, 30-second audition. Now they're
Yeah.
going to have me in here 4 hours at a time.
Oosh.
4 hour sessions every 3-4 weeks. I was dying. And they had me yelling. as well.
Oh
They were
my
like, yell.
God.
So I'm yelling like
Yeah,
I
total
was
voice killer.
guzzling tea and honey
Oh
and
my gosh.
and so so I was like, well, I'm glad I booked it, but at the same time I had to really like figure out a different way to do that voice.
One of my first gigs was I did a voice match for Freddie
Hi, Mo.
Highmore, the kid.
Yeah, the kid
Well, yeah,
from Finding
he's a grown.
Neverland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Spiderwick Chronicles, he played twins, and they needed somebody that could come in and do
Oh.
all of his screaming, breathing, and efforts. And so that was me. I sounded like him as a kid,
Oh,
right?
that's so cool.
And it was a long session, and they needed me to sound like I was being tugged around at this one point. So the director of the session literally came behind me, and I'd be running, and then he would tug me, and he would tug me the other way. And so we would get that like legit
Yeah.
sound. That was kind of wild. I did a crazy voiceover session for Crackdown 2. I wouldn't think that that's what it was, a video game. And that
Yeah.
one, they rented out a large studio space, and they had a guy following me around with a boom because they wanted me to do all of the physicality, which was wild. So these
Wow.
aren't like
But
funny stories, but
was
they're
that
interesting.
mocap or
No, they just wanted it. And if
interesting?
you
The most
search,
the most physical voiceover I've done is like this. Like
there's a video that Brandon made. This was back when my husband was working in video game journalism, and he made a video, an edit of my character from that, or my characters, and it's called "Killing My Wife." And and basically, he played the game, and he found all of the places where I was like, I'm on fire, and like he edited it all together. So it's somewhere on the internet. You can
You
find
get
it.
say a Sean Bean edit, just all the various ways you've died. And,
Yes, yeah,
that's so good. Yeah,
yeah.
death rattles. Death rattles,
Death
I think, are
rattles.
so much fun. It wasn't just. It was like you've been shot. They literally gave different sound effects or different vocal prompts depending on where the player would shoot you.
Isn't it amazing?
So they were like,
The
you'd be
layers that
shot
they
in the
put into
shoulder,
it.
and they'd be like, we need to hear the hit, and they'd be like, duh, and
Yeah,
they'd be like, now you're shot in the leg, and it's like need to stumble, and now you're shot, now you're shot, and it doesn't even like now you gurgle on your own blood, and you're like, oh my, yeah, like after a
yeah,
while, you're just like. 100 Ways to Die. Good grief.
yeah.
Do you want to do a quick plug for any books, shows, and social media?
So some things, like I said, I've been working on a ton of audiobooks, and I'm actually recording the 6th book in the Drake Thorn legal series. I'm finishing that today. So all 6 books will be out within the year. The first couple are already out. The first one's called A Witch's Legacy. Those are fun. It's about a woman who is a lawyer, and then she finds out, guess what? She's a witch. Also,
Yes.
she's a dragon shifter.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And she has this huge legacy that she has to fulfill. So that's a really fun series.
That
So
sounds
you can check that
amazing.
out. You can check out The French Honeymoon. I'm really proud of that. I had a book come out this year called Buzzkill, and I'm super proud of the work I did on that. And that's a sequel to Hard Girls. So I, just keep an eye on what I'm doing in the audiobook sphere. I love it, and I don't know if reviews help, but if you listen to one of my books and you want to leave a nice review, please do so. The newest season of Love, Death, and Robots is out, or about to be out, and if you check out last season, you can hear me as zombies and whatnot in Night of the Many Dead in that.
And where can people follow you?
Follow me on Instagram. I don't do the X, but wherever you follow me, it's at Amanda_Troop. I'm also on Substack, and that's where, when I do writing projects, that's where they'll be coming up. And you can listen to my Christmas story that I wrote, which is a Christmas story, but it's a very sweet story about warmth and love and children growing up and things like that. And it's
nothing that Christmas is normally associated with, is it?
it's a little. I think it's different enough. I honestly do, and I'm rather proud of it. So yeah, all of those places.
What's that called?
That story is called A Good Night.
A Good
Night. And anything else that's coming out, I'll be putting it up on the Instagram, so you
at
can
Amanda_Troop. Report.
That's right. Yeah.
Report to the troop, everyone.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, Amanda Troop, thank you so much for all sharing your experience and your wisdom. I truly appreciate it. And if nothing else, it's so good to see you and catch up.
It's so good. I'm so happy for all your success. I have greatly enjoyed following your voiceover career as it's burgeoned and bloomed as I definitely thought it would many years ago.
Well, thank you very
Yeah.
much, Amanda. All right,
Yeah.
my child needs me. I must dash.
Okay. All right. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you so much.